All right, so welcome to our Adelaide Metcalfe meeting for Monday, November 16th, 2020, and I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll ask if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from members of council. Seeing none. Before we jump into the rest of the agenda, I just want to ask Morgan if you could throw up that picture that I sent you early on. So about a week ago, I received a message on Facebook, and it was a very positive one. So it's not every day that we get positive comments and feedback from members of the public. But this individual that's from Healy Ave was thrilled to see people utilizing the sidewalks that are now down Napperton and Pike side road. And this gentleman that's there with his walkers walking down Healy Ave, and he was able to do that because of the sidewalks that we just installed on Napperton. And she mentioned that there's lots of seniors from Seasons that are now making what they call that loop around there on Napperton to Pike to Healy. And she was very happy to share that with me. And she was thrilled as well that weekend after they were the sidewalks were installed, that the amount of kids that were able to walk down Napperton and then to their friend's house without any worry, and their parents able to let them go out there without any that supervision that they typically have to have. And she was just thrilled that this was able to happen. So I just wanted to share that message because it's not every day that we get those positive feedbacks from our community. So I just want to say, on behalf of those residents, thank you to council that we finally have those sidewalks in there, so then we can have those residents in that area enjoy getting around safely, and a new way of exercise for our seniors in that area as well. So with that, I just want to go into the next part of the agenda there, which is our minutes of our previous meeting, which was November 2nd. Mover and seconder for those minutes, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried.
I'll abstain due to a conflict for November the 2nd.
Yep. Alrighty, so we do have a delegation for 7:05, and I think I talked quite a bit there and we started a little late, so we are probably at that time. And that is for OPA 02 2020 and ZBA 05 2020 for Get Her Done Farms. And do we have anyone that's going to be joining us on that one? Anybody that's waiting in the waiting room there?
Nobody currently waiting at the moment, Martin.
All right, so that's for address number 1419 and 1441 Langdon Drive. So I'll hand it over to Stephanie to go through the report.
Thank you. I'm just going to, am I able to share my screen? I can't right now is what I was getting at. There we go.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so the purpose and effect of the official plan amendment is to redesignate a portion of the subject lands from the agricultural area to the aggregate extraction area, and that's to permit the expansion of an existing sand and gravel operation. And the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject lands from the general agricultural A zone to the extractive resource E zone to permit the expansion of the existing sand and gravel operation. And during the evaluation of the application, it was determined that there is an apparent error on Schedule A1 of the township's official plan, which identified the location of the existing aggregate operation incorrectly. And this application also proposes to redesignate the incorrect area from aggregate extraction to agricultural area to rectify this apparent mapping error. So on your screen in front of you, the subject lands are highlighted in orange. So it's kind of a flag-shaped parcel in the same ownership. The yellow is shown for the existing aggregate operation. The red is the boundary in which the applicants are proposing to expand the operation, and the blue down here is to indicate the mapping error. So the subject lands are comprised of 2 parcels that are approximately 62.52 hectares or 154.4 acres in size, and are located on the southeast corner of Langan Drive and Wilson Road. The properties contain 2 single detached dwellings and a livestock operation. The remaining lands are actively farmed and or used for the aggregate extraction. And the lands are serviced by a private well and septic systems. A Category 1 Class A pit license through the Aggregate Resources Act under the authority of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry has been requested to allow extraction of sand and gravel below the established water table. Currently, the pit operates under a Category 3 Class A license with an extraction area of 11.3 hectares or 27.9 acres. And again, that's shown on yellow on your screen. And so the combined size of the existing license boundary and the proposed expansion would be 39 hectares or 96.4 acres with an extraction area of 36.3 hectares or 89.7 acres, with the balance of the licensed area being made up of setbacks and buffers. And the material submitted in support of the application indicates that the lifespan of the pit is expected to be approximately 10 to 15 years, subject to market conditions. The applicants have indicated that the majority of the extraction would remain above the water table, and a small area below water extraction in the northeast portion of the site would create a pond of approximately 2.2 hectares or 5.4 acres in size. The applicant has also indicated that operations of the site would be phased and designed to allow rehabilitation to be undertaken progressively, with the final land use plan implemented to restore the majority of the area to an agricultural use. The majority of the aggregate from the site is expected to be utilized in local and surrounding area, and therefore the trucks will continue to travel to, the haul routes being used by the existing pit. An existing laneway from Langan Drive provides access to the current aggregate extraction area, but is proposed to be abandoned in favor of a new laneway on Langan Drive. And the applicants have indicated that there should be no significant increase in traffic volume on the designated haul routes. Council will recall that the statutory public meeting for these applications was held on September 9th, 2020, at which planning staff delivered a background report received by council for information purposes. And planning staff note that no public comments were received prior to or at the meeting itself. And staff also note that the applicants held an Aggregate Resources Act required public meeting on October 13th, 2020. And the agent has advised that only one member of the public was in attendance, whose concerns had already been addressed prior to the open house. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and we did receive the following comments from agencies as well as township staff. So the township's chief building official advised no concerns with the application. The township's roads manager advised that the proposed entrance onto Langan Drive is to be constructed to township standards, including hard surfacing to the property line, with all costs borne by the applicant. All routes for truck traffic are to use Langan Drive proposed entrance east to County Road 6, as well as the existing entrance onto Wilson Road, north to Langan Drive, then east to County Road 6. The county engineer has advised of no concerns. And as of the date of the report, we have not received any comments or concerns from members of the public regarding the proposal. Planning staff note that the adjacent landowners, being 29910 Wilson Road, have been notified and consulted on the proposed mapping changes to their property. And so what I'm speaking to is the owners of this property down here were notified of the mapping error. So they are aware of that change. The provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the Adelaide Metcalfe official plan all allow aggregate extraction in agricultural areas, provided that rehabilitation is done. And staff are satisfied that rehabilitation will be undertaken progressively to restore the majority of the extracted area to an agricultural use, with the exception of the pond. Policy 3.6.23 of the Adelaide Metcalfe official plan states that extensions of existing pits and quarries requires an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, provided they satisfy the criteria primarily related to adherence to the requirements of the Aggregate Resources Act. Planning staff have reviewed the documentation provided by the applicant and are satisfied that the criteria can be met through the Aggregate Resource Act process. In considering the proposal, planning staff are satisfied that the proposed official plan amendment is appropriate based on the recommended mitigation and rehabilitation measures, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan. And as such, it would be appropriate for council to proceed with the requested amendments. Staff are also of the opinion that the mapping error on Schedule A1 of the township's official plan should be rectified through this amendment by redesignated the incorrectly identified area from aggregate extraction to agricultural area. And so it is recommended that the official plan amendment be adopted and forward to the County of Middlesex for consideration of approval, and further that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Stephanie. And Greg, have we had anybody else join us from the applicant or their agent at all?
Sorry, nobody has joined us yet.
Alrighty, so we'll just jump right into questions and comments from members of council. Is there any questions or comments at all?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, I guess this is that time we have to have that 5-minute intermission. And we'll be back to see if anybody, so I guess if you're watching, sorry, I should say that if you have any questions or comments from the public, please follow the link on the website. I think it'll be on that first slide that Greg's about to pull up. Alrighty, so we're back from our 5-minute recess, and I'll ask Jen, I believe, or someone. Did we get anybody to call in or?
No, we did not, Mayor Smith.
Excellent, thank you, Jennifer. Alrighty, with that, so we have the recommendation then, and that is the motion that's in front of us, and I believe Stephanie already read through it earlier, which is resolved that the official plan amendment number 14 be adopted by the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe Council and forwarded to the County of Middlesex for consideration of approval, and further that the zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 05-2020 be approved. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Clark. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. All right. So I guess that is that's everything for our planning meetings. We did have a few applications that are now postponed to the December 21st, 2020 meeting. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but that's what's noted on the agenda. Stephanie, do you want to make a note on that one?
Through the mayor, just so that any members of the public are aware in council. So the notice we did have 3 surplus farm dwelling severances scheduled originally for this evening. The notice was sent out in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act in regards to the timelines. However, the date on the application, or sorry, the notices were addressed as Wednesday, November 16th, as opposed to Monday. So just an abundance of caution, staff decided in order to give the public the opportunity so we don't miss anyone if they're interested to speak on these matters, it would be in the best interest to postpone them at this time so that the correct information in terms of the day of the week is included on the notices.
So I know, I completely understand, and that's with any of those planning applications and notices, it's a lot of copy and pasting, and we did have these meetings scheduled on Wednesday, so that's obviously a very simple error to make, and it makes sense to push those back to December to make sure that everybody is able to join us. Alrighty, so we'll move into correspondence. So I have a paper version and also a second screen, and I didn't know what to look at. Upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. So our next regular meeting is Monday, December 7th. Oh, yes. See you later, Stephanie. The next following by December 21st. And then we're hopping into 2021 with our first meeting on Monday, January 11th. So the first item for the correspondence is an invitation letter for the Women's Caucus, and it's for November 23rd, 2020. If you're interested in attending, I believe there's that link that's on there. I think there's an email that was sent out as well. Recommended readings. Item number 2 is from AGCO, and it's a public notice for a liquor sales license. Item number 3 for action required. It's from Belleville, and it's a resolution from regarding the AODA website support. Any comments on this one? Councillor McKinnon?
I went for support.
Excellent. So moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by, I think, Deputy Mayor Hendricks had her hand up. Is there any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. All right, so I think that's the least amount of correspondence we've had in a while. So a motion to resolve that council receive and file correspondence items CC1 and 2. Councillor Brody and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor? And that's carried. And before we jump into our staff reports, I just want to say thank you, Greg, for jumping on board to help us go through those planning meetings. And as always, having that presentation for that 5 minutes. And I heard that we're going to have music the next time.
That's what I'm told. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
And if it doesn't work, we'll hear you singing or something in the background.
Nobody wants that. That's terrible. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We'll jump into staff reports. So our first staff report is from our Public Works Manager, and it's the grass cutting tendering report. And Coulter isn't able to join us today, so we're going to have Jen, our acting treasurer, go through that report.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So on behalf of the Public Works Manager, Coulter Cahill, this is a grass cutting tender. If council remembers, a couple of years ago, we did a tender with a 2-year ending date, which was for 2020 was the ending. So we put out a new tender for grass cutting, and it closed on Monday, November 9th. And if council looks at the tender summary, we had 4 quotes received. And the recommendation from the Public Works Manager is to go with Mollard's Groundskeeping, which is our current contractor. And outlined are the 3 costs per year. This will be a 3-year tender versus a 2-year tender. And it will also include the 3-strike policy, which means if there's any complaints towards the contractor after 3, we have the obligation to end the contract early.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Is there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing, oh, Councillor Clark.
I was just going to say that they've done a really great job. They're to be commended. So they've done what they contracted to do, I guess.
Yeah, I would fully agree. And I think I made the comment earlier this year that it was, disappointing that we weren't able to have, the Optimist Club wasn't able to have their ball tournament and everything else, because they did such an excellent job, leading up to what would have been that event. So I'm pleased with if council's approving that recommendation. Councillor Clark, do you want to move that then? Okay, and seconded by Councillor Brody. Is there any further discussion or comments? All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Alrighty. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't another motion. So we'll jump into our next staff report, and it's from our clerk, acting treasurer, Jennifer.
Thanks, Mayor Smith. This policy is in regards to records management. This is something that has been, I've been spending a lot of time on getting organized. We haven't had one in the past. We should have one. We should have a bylaw that outlines what our records retention schedule is. We haven't had one. So putting the policy in place, and due to COVID, it has also opened up my eyes regarding electronic signature. So this will help in the event we end up on, I don't want to say it to jinx it for 2020, but if we end up on lockdown and the mayor or the deputy mayor can't get to the office to sign documents, then at least we can use an electronic signature to put a signature on our minutes, bylaws, and any agreements. So that's what this is also to be part of for records management. So part of my report outlines that policy, as well as the records retention schedule, which we currently use with OmniRim, which is based off the Tom Rims. Council approved in the 2019 budget to go with Laserfiche. That wasn't set up in 2019, so it got moved to 2020. We have worked towards our way to that. However, due to staff and resources, it has not commenced, although I'm fully excited to be getting into it and getting all our documents digitalized. One thing will be for next summer, I'm hoping to get a summer student that can help with the digitalization of our paper records. So that will hopefully be with the Canada Summer Grant that will come out early 2021, which I believe is in January. So part of my report is also requesting from council the approval to use our modernization funds, the $308,000 that we received. We had $100,000 that council approved to use towards office renovation, but I'm not sure if we're still using those funds towards office renovation. So if we're not, then we still have $308,000 that's not used. And because this is a great modernization project going from manual records to automated records, it spits those modernization dollars for that type of project. When the costs were evaluated as to what we would need in order to implement this program, There wasn't a lot of thought given into how many licenses we would need and the equipment to need to back up in order to make this a fully successful automation into electronic records. So you'll see under the financial impact, I have outlined one-time costs, and that wasn't approved in the 2020 budget, which we have spent, and ongoing costs, which will be incorporated in the 2021 budget and going forward, which that was always in the mindset going forward with this program of Laserfish. The one that has not been considered is the funds being requested for the modernization fund dollars to be used. And that's for 2 more licenses for Laserfish. And speaking with Shannon with the Joint Building Department, it's been very made clear that they are going to require a license in order to automate building permits over into an electronic format. So her department would get a license, and then one of the administrative assistants would get a license as well. And of course, this wouldn't happen until we have fully implemented Laserfish. So with that comes Adobe Professional 2020. What that does is help move our documents from Word and Excel into PDF, and it also helps, especially in the planning and building department, where you can merge the documents together instead of just having all separate documents, and then we can link it to the property files, something that we have not been doing. Also in the request in that is for a plotter, and that's for the planning, more so for the building department when it comes to when Shannon receives her engineering drawings that become quite large. The plotter will be able to print these off so that when we get electronic format, the building inspectors and the chief building official are able to print it off in order to review the documents. And then the last piece is a scanner, and that's for my department, so that when we hire a summer student for next year, we're not tying up the photocopier, because that's the only piece of equipment we have that does all the office printing, the scanning, faxing. So if we had a separate scanner, then we wouldn't tie up that photocopier when we decided to do that project come next year. So the attachments, I have the records retention policy, there's the records retention schedule, and then there's the electronic signature policy, as well as the sample bylaw. And the sample bylaw is also under the bylaws for tonight for passing of council. So my 3 recommendations is that council receive my report as it's been presented, and further that council authorize the delegation of authority to the municipal clerk for establishing and amending record retention periods for the records for the township. And further that council approve and adopt the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe records management policy to establish the framework for the creation, implementation, and maintenance of the Adelaide Metcalfe record management program to ensure that full and accurate records are created, captured, maintained, and disposed of in accordance with legislation and operational requirements. There's also a 4th motion there that I don't have on this report because I didn't think of it till today when I was doing the resolutions, but it's to get council's approval to use the modernization funds that were set aside.
Okay, thank you, Jen. When we get to the point of the motions, is that going to be one motion altogether, or do you want them all separate?
If I could have them separate, that would certainly make it easier for searching for future when it comes to the grants.
Excellent. Is there any questions or comments at all? Deputy Mayor Hendricks?
Yeah, I was wondering, you mentioned the building department. Is there going to be any drainage records stored digitally?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Smith, to Deputy Mayor Hendricks, any record that the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe has will be all digital. Right now, we have a lot of the digital records in drainage because Spreets, our drainage engineer, sends us that electronically. But what we don't have is a lot of the building department that's electronic because it's all been paper fed. So that's a big piece because we don't even have it paper trail to the property file, where if we have it electronically, we can put it in multiple stations. Or locations more so. Attaching it to the property files is very key, especially when it comes to ownership changes. Then we're able to track, and even when it comes to planning, when there's a severance, we're able to track it and it stays attached to the property file forever, much like a building permit.
Is there any other questions or comments at all? Councilor McKinnon?
Through you, Mayor Smith, to Jennifer. Jennifer, after the retention period is up, do the department heads and yourself or the chief building official, do they sign off someplace that that record has been destroyed?
Yeah, so through your Mayor Smith to Councillor McKinnon. So what happens is we have a form that we fill out for the records that are to be disposed of, and that's according to the schedule. Anything in the building department actually has a permanent retention, so none of that gets disposed of, and same with planning. So things, there are some things in the finance that would get disposed of, such as receipts, the tax stubs, payments. So that those things that do get disposed of, the department head would review it, and myself as being the records coordinator would sign off on it, and it stays as a permanent file to show that that file was disposed of.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments at all? I'll just make a quick comment. I'm very excited that we're jumping on board with Laserfiche and that we're going to move forward with that one. Wearing a different hat, I use Laserfiche on a daily basis, and it's an amazing program, and you can link it to pretty well everywhere throughout within the township. So once you start, getting that ball rolling, it's gonna keep on going, and it's gonna simplify and modernize our township. So I'm very excited to get that ball rolling. So there's no other questions or comments. So we do have those 4 motions. The first one is to receive the report. Councilor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And the next one is to authorize our clerk for the record retention stuff. I'm not going to read through the motions Jen just did. Mover, seconder. Okay, Councilor Clark and Councilor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And the next one is to have council approve and adopt the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe Records Management Policy and establish a framework for creation and implementation and maintenance of the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe Records Maintenance Program. Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councilor McKinnon. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And the last one, which is added on, so I'll read through it. Resolve that council approve staff to use modernization funding towards the implementation of record management programs, specifically the purchase of 2 more licenses for Laserfiche, Adobe Professional 2022 licenses, and plotter and scanner. Okay, mover and seconder, Councilor McKinnon and Councilor Brody. All those in favor? And that is carried.
My last report is the accounts payable listing from October 27th to November 9th in the amount of $63,877.85. And I'll just note, I'm not working from the office tonight, so if there is any questions in regards to the accounts payable, you can email them to me and I'll be more than happy to give you an update as to what that expense is for.
All right. So is there any, is there a mover and seconder for the accounts? Councilor Brody, seconded by Councilor Clark. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so that's everything for our staff reports. So we'll jump into other business. Is there anything that council wants to bring up at all? Okay, seeing none. So the next portion is our closed session. So we need to have a motion to resolve that council hold a closed session meeting as provided for under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, and that's under 239 B and D, the human resources, and as well as property tax arrears. So mover and seconder for that, and that's at 7:42. Okay, Deputy Hendricks and Councilor Clark, all those in favor? And that is carried. And